Today on Inquirer. Process of procuring COVID-19 bivalent vaccines hits a roadblock as the coronavirus-induced state of calamity is not extended, according to the Department of Health. Ressa and Rappler Holdings Corporation acquitted of tax evasion. President Bongbong Marcos expresses optimism for economic growth for 2023. And plane fares set to go down in February on cheaper fuel. Good evening. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. expressed optimism that the Philippine economy could grow at a faster pace of 7% this year, more optimistic than his economic team's projection of at least 6.5%. To tell us more, here's Doris Dumlao Badilla reporting live from Davos, Switzerland. Doris?
Hello from Davos. It's day 3 of the World Economic Forum meeting, and it will likely be among the busiest for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. It's about 11:14 a.m. here. He will speak at 2 World Economic Forum events today. First, a panel on nutrition security in line with his post as Agriculture Secretary. And this afternoon, he will have a one-on-one session to talk about his investment pitch for the Philippines. And his story is about an economy that will grow by 7% this year, in contrast with a global economy that is widely expected to enter a recession. As what he has started doing in smaller meetings at the sidelines of this event, where movers and shakers discuss the world's most pressing problems, the president is expected to talk about the Maharlika Investment Fund, or the proposal to create a sovereign wealth fund. Finance Secretary Ben Jokno, it's said it's no different from how oil-rich countries use part of their oil exports to invest for the future generations. Compared with the previous Duterte administration, which shut down a number of mining firms due to environmental concerns, the Marcos administration has reopened the doors to mining and is now keen on using part of the government's share of mining revenues to contribute to the Sovereign Wealth Fund and invest in infrastructure that will benefit future generations. Meanwhile, questions continue to be raised about high consumer prices in the Philippines, which is at a 14-year high at 8.1% as of December last year. We looked at the prices of onions in this upscale ski town. You can buy onions for just 166 pesos per kilo, compared with 600 pesos per kilo back home. Meanwhile, investor reception so far has been favorable, with the International Monetary Fund, after the bilateral meeting with the government delegation, describing the Philippines as an exceptionally well-performing country amid turbulence in the world. Back to you, Bay.
Doris, I'm curious because you mentioned that there are questions being raised about the high consumer prices in the country, and that's all while the president is promoting the Philippines as an investment destination. How is this being received by foreign investors and business leaders? And are we seeing this as a possible roadblock in securing investments?
As far as the economic team is concerned, probably not, because the phenomenon of high consumer prices is not unique to the Philippines. Maybe the phenomenon of spiraling prices of onions in particular, and for a time sugar, that's the one that's unique to us. And it's due to a confluence of other factors. But high inflation is also happening in other parts of the world. And it's one of the concerns actually that are being discussed here at the World Economic Forum. And so far, during the discussions here, investors are focusing more on the growth story because it's difficult to find anywhere else in the world where you'll find a 7% growth rate.
And Doris, if I'm not mistaken, Marcos is expected to be there until the 20th. What else is expected in the schedule of the president and his Philippine delegation in Davos?
Yeah, for the rest of the week, tomorrow will be a free day for the president. As you know, he's here with the first lady and his son, Sandro Marcos. So we're not really sure what he'll do with his free time, but because it's a ski resort, maybe they'll do some skiing perhaps. But on Friday, he's scheduled to meet with the Filipino community here, as is usually the practice when a Philippine president goes on a state visit. He always meets with the Filipino community in that country, and he is also expected to brief the media. That's us. So there are about 15 of us here about what has been accomplished during his visit here.
All right, thank you so much, Doris. That's Doris Dumlao Abadilla, reporting live from Davos, Switzerland. Nobel laureate Maria Ressa and Rappler Holdings Corporation has been acquitted of 4 counts of tax evasion. In a decision by its first division, the Court of Tax Appeals ruled to acquit them, citing the failure of the prosecution to prove the guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The case was filed in 2018 by the Department of Justice over the failure of Ressa and Rappler to declare a 162.41 million peso profit from the issuance of Philippine depositary receipts in 2015. PDRs are financial instruments used by some entities to receive foreign investment without violating the constitutional requirement of full Filipino ownership. Meanwhile, Rappler and Ressa lauded their acquittal, calling it a triumph of facts over politics. The digital-only news site maintained that the charges lodged against the company and Ressa were fraudulent, false, and flimsy, as they do not have any basis in fact. Rappler asserted that the BIR during the administration of President Rodrigo Duterte was politicized and that it deliberately ignored evidence refuting accusations that Rappler failed to pay proper taxes. A panel of prosecutors from the Department of Justice tossed out the motion for inhibition filed by suspended Bureau of Corrections Chief Gerald Bantag. The panel of prosecutors handles the twin murder complaints filed against Bantag for the death of broadcaster Percival Mabasa, popularly known as Percy Lapid. Bantag wants the panel to inhibit from the cases, claiming that it is the Office of the Ombudsman who has the jurisdiction to investigate him. The motion also mentioned the supposed bad blood between Bantag and Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla, who they accused of prejudging the case. In dismissing his motion, the panel of prosecutors pointed out that the same Supreme Court ruling cited by Bantag clarified that the Ombudsman's authority is not exclusive but a concurrent authority. Regarding bias and partiality, since it is under the supervision and control of the Secretary of Justice and the National Prosecution Service, the panel said it was purely speculative. With the dismissal of the motion, the next preliminary investigation is set on January 24. The process of procuring COVID-19 bivalent vaccines has hit a roadblock as the government has not extended the coronavirus-induced state of calamity in the country. That's according to the Department of Health. Bivalent vaccines are a type of vaccine that targets specific variants of COVID-19, such as the more transmissible Omicron. In a television interview, DOH officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergere said the non-extension of the state of calamity declaration means the DOH now has to revert to the usual process of procurement. According to Vergere, this takes longer because the DOH is no longer eligible to make emergency procurements. Nevertheless, Vergere assured the public that while negotiations continue, they are also looking for ways to make the country's acquisition of bivalent vaccines faster. She further revealed that some countries have already offered to donate doses of the bivalent vaccines to the Philippines, including the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access or COVAX facility. Vergere also noted that the government's target schedule to start providing bivalent vaccines to the public remains in the first quarter of 2023. Some good news for passengers. They can look forward to cheaper plane tickets next month after the government further reduced the fuel subcharge that airlines are allowed to collect. The Civil Aeronautics Board announced that the fuel subcharge was lowered a notch to level 6 for February on cheaper jet fuel, the lowest since peaking at level 12 in August 2022. Under level 6, passengers of domestic flights will pay a fuel subcharge of 185 pesos to 665 pesos each. Those flying abroad will be charged an additional 610 pesos and 37 centavos to 4,538 pesos and 40 centavos. These rates are lower compared to level 7 rates, which range from 219 pesos to 739 pesos for domestic routes, and for international flights, 722 pesos and 71 centavos to 5,373 pesos and 69 centavos. Fuel subcharges are additional fees imposed by airlines to help them recover fuel costs. These are separate from the base fare, which is the actual amount paid by the passenger for his or her seat. The implementation of lower fuel subcharge comes at a time when airlines are ramping up their flight capacities to take advantage of the resurgence of air travel demand. Alamin naman natin ang mainit na balita sa mundo ng showbiz kasama si Irvin Santiago ng Bandera. Irvin?
Hi Bay at sa lahat ng mga kabandera natin all over the universe, ito na nga ang latest Bandera Chika. In fairness kay Alex Gonzaga, sa gitna ng mga nararanasan niyang pambabatikos ngayon dahil sa ginawa niya sa isang waiter sa kanyang birthday sa Lubong, ay may mga nagtatanggol pa rin naman sa kanya. Hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa nag-i-issue ng official statement ang TV host actress sa kinasasangkutang kontrobersya. Kaya naman abangers pa rin ang madlang people sa kanyang magiging depensa. Pero ayon sa isang taong malapit sa pamilya Gonzaga, nagsorry na raw ang TV host actress sa nasabing food server na nagngangalang Alan at nagtatrabaho sa resto ng isang kilalang chef na siyang nag-cater sa birthday ni Alex. Ayon sa kampo ng vlogger, kakilala raw ni Alex ang waiter, kaya nakatuwaan niya itong biruin sa pamamagitan ng pagpapahid ng cake sa mukha. Pero sa kabila nito, patuloy pa ring binabanata ng mga netizens ang sisterakan ni Tony Gonzaga at pinayuhan pang lumantad na at mag-issue ng public apology sa nasabing waiter. Matapang namang tinawag na stupid at narcissist ng radio DJ na si Mo Twister si Alex habang napakabastos daw talaga ng ginawa nito, sabi ng singer na si Ralph Salazar. Na-hurt naman daw ang news anchor na si Arnold Clavio sa ginawa ni Alex. Ramdam daw niya ang pagkapahiya ng waiter base sa napanood niyang viral video. Ayon kay Egan, nag-work din siya noon bilang waiter kaya knows niya ang feeling ng binabastos at ginagawang katatawanan. Hindi raw siya natawa at natuwa sa inasal ng aktres. Nasaktan daw siya bilang dating waiter sa isang fast food restaurant noong nasa kolehiyo pa siya at hindi niya maatim na hindi mag-react sa maling trato ni Alex sa waiter. Kilala raw na kikay bilang komedyante ang TV host kaya nagustuhan siya ng mga tao. Pero lagi raw niyang iisipin na may limitasyon ang lahat at dapat maging mag-ingat dahil ginagawa siyang huwaran ng mga kabataan. At yan ang Bandera Chika natin for today. Thanks, babe!
Maraming salamat, Irvin. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Beatrice Pinlac. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.